Welcome back to The Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones. And yes, I know I normally have the hood, but my goodness gracious me, the heat has just been unbelievable, and yeah, some things are just not possible. But with all of that said, welcome. And as we get started, I am going to remind everybody that on this live we have but one rule, and that is, don't be rude. And we do what we do wholly and solely for the interest and the learning and the enjoyment. We neither promote nor deride any of the things that we talk about. We simply find it interesting. So if you're interested in weird things, this is the place for you. And we do encourage you, as long as you are polite, as I have said, to comment your opinions as much as you like. Like, share, subscribe, and do all the good things that we need to get the channel going. And we have been talking about black-eyed children. We've been doing a couple of things on the live that isn't really quite enough to do a full live on, but we've sort of put them together as they are somehow linked and related. And they are suitably creepy, and we do like creepy. So as we get going, I hope you're interested in that. But nevertheless, welcome. And let's see what we can do. So, for those of you who don't know, black-eyed children are very much an interesting phenomenon that appears, at least, to be fairly modern, but actually is not as modern as you might think. And it seems that it does, in fact, come from some pretty old sources, which is very interesting indeed. Essentially, they are incredibly polite. They are always between the age of about 6 and 16. They are always neatly dressed, if sometimes a bit old-fashioned, and on occasion out of season. And the critical thing is that they ask to come in. And they do say that letting them in is a terribly bad idea. So let's see what we know about them. Now, they are, of course, quantified as paranormal. The black-eyed children, or black-eyed kids, as they love to make little letter words instead of actually talking about what they're talking about. BEKs, if you will. Hey there, Riley. Black-eyed children, first really noted in social media from modern America, but apparently coming from way back. Human children with pale skin and, most importantly, as you probably imagined, pitch black eyes. Not just the colored part, but the entire eye, which is suitably creepy. They are reportedly seen begging. This heat is making me not even able to speak. Begging or hitchhiking, or are encountered on the doorsteps of residential homes, so they say. They turn up and they asked to come in for varying reasons in a very polite way. They generally never demand, and of course it works entirely on your human instinct to help a child. But they are something else. Now, what exactly else is a question that isn't fully answered? Some say undead or ghostly, some say demonic, some say alien, but they are inhuman, attempting to impersonate ordinary human children, and in order to manipulate people by requesting entry into houses or riding in vehicles with supposedly sinister motives. Now, how sinister those motives are, I suppose, is hard to say because it's never quite clear what they're actually up to. So, tabloid coverage of these creatures claim that black-eyed children have existed since the 1980s, but it seems historical records say that they may have turned up far, far older. Now, in 1996, postings written by a Texas reporter, Brian Bethel, on his ghost-related mailing list, related two alleged encounters with these creatures. Bethel describes encountering two such children in Abilene, Texas in '96, and claims that a second person had a similar, unrelated encounter in Portland, Oregon. The stories became regarded as a classic example of the creepypasta, fun, urban, scary stories that people like to spread. Spooky! Now, obviously, creepypasta is there entirely for the enjoyment. Spooky, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Well, there's the reason for the lack of the hood tonight, because today was monstrously hot, and I took quite a long walk for my monthly clinic visit to get my medications, and it seemed it was a very bad choice. And of course, tonight I went to my usual martial arts training, which I did not complete to my extreme embarrassment, and I just overheated, and I was well and
Yeah.
truly finished.
Yeah. No, I took a nap during the hot heat.
I should have. I really, really should have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it definitely
So,
wiped me, so I'm trying to cool myself off somewhat.
so what are we chatting about tonight?
Well, we are going to finish off with black-eyed children, and then we're going to go on to a couple of related things, which are suitably creepy, and maybe, we'll tie up a couple of things that are questions that we were left with from several other of our lives. So maybe this was a good direction to go in. We shall see.
Okay. I had a black eye before.
Well, yes, funny enough, one of the difficulties doing this research is it kept sending me to medical sites and asking me whether or not I was being abused. So apparently there's that. But yeah, so what can we say? But fortunately, at least I don't believe so. I am not abused, not at this stage of my life. I am well looked after by some very loving people, so at least there is that.
Yeah. I saw this one guy today, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
It looked like he had black eyes, or it was completely black, but he just had, I'm not sure what you call it, but it was just very big. Um,
Contact lenses?
no, no. The part of your eye,
Oh, the
this little circle.
not the pupil, the iris. The iris.
The iris. That
Yes.
would be the colorful bit.
Yes.
Yeah, well, his one was really big. It like almost covered his entire
So for a brief
eyes.
moment,
Yeah, it's only when he looked to the side I could see that. Okay, he's got a little bit of white there.
so he was normal. That was lucky.
Yeah. No, he
What
looked a bit scary because it was so huge.
what would you have done if he had had no white at all?
I don't know. Yesterday I said I would like turn away and run, maybe get away from it.
Right?
But I think I would start asking questions.
Well, there's that. And there may be good reason for asking questions, as we will see with at least one view of what this might actually be. So maybe we can give you some answers, maybe, or just more questions, which after all seems to be the general trend with all the things that we look at on this channel.
Yeah,
But
questions, but
yes, but nevertheless, we shall see what happens. So, yeah, Black Eyed Children began in media quite recently, but it seems that in history they have existed for a lot longer, or they just haven't been popularly spoken of, shall we say, which might be the case. I'm not sure. I do wonder about these things. So we shall see what we can discover. But as I say, the first known social media thing came up from a journalist in Texas with a follow-on of a story that he published that happened to somebody else. Now, bear in mind, I say journalist carefully because he wrote for things like Monsters and Mysteries in America. So it might be that we would require to take it with a little grain of salt, but maybe not. I mean, who's to say? That's up to you guys to decide. In 2012, the horror film Black Eyed Kids was produced with Kickstarter, and the director commenting that the creepy children were an urban legend that's been floating around the internet for years, and it was just fascinating. We know that on MSN's Weekly Strange in 2013 there were reports of black-eyed children that may have also spread the legend. But how old really is the legend? And the answer is actually a lot older than you think. There are versions of the same going back 2,000 or 3,000 years, if not longer. No problem, Spooky. So there is at least that, which may mean something and it may not. We know that during 1 week in 2014, the Daily Star ran 3 front-page stories about the alleged sightings of black-eyed children, supposedly connected to the sale of a haunted pub in Staffordshire. The paper claimed a shock rise in sightings around the world. Alleged sightings are taken very serious by ghost hunters, some of whom believe that they are either extraterrestrials, vampires, or ghosts. Mickey! Hello! And welcome. How are you doing? Are you good?
Hey,
Hey! Awesome to
can you hear
have
me
you on.
okay today?
Yes, I absolutely can hear you. Awesome to have you on. That's fantastic. So yeah, we're just running through the Black Eyed Kids. and to see if because they connect to some of the other stories, and you might be pleased to see that in the video behind me there is indeed Paradise Valley, because that might connect as well.
Yeah.
So we have all sorts of interesting sort of possible connections and things, which I think you will find amusing, or at least informative, or not, we shall see. So, given that both of us have in fact been to Paradise Valley on more than one occasion, I think it would be a good thing, absolutely, to get your input on what you think might be, because there's a couple of answers around. So
Yeah.
we shall see. Now, science writer Sharon A. Hill said that they were unable to find any actual documentation of black-eyed child encounters, and concluding that this is the kind of story that's passed on as a friend of a friend ghost stories, and that they tend to be the same as the phantom black dogs, where the subject isn't really supernatural, and the original account happened to somebody who knew somebody that had a cousin that. So you can't really say that you found someone who said, no, I saw, which might not be the case. We shall see. So file the black-eyed children, they say, under the same heading as Bigfoot. Believe it if you like, but there's no actual evidence of their existence, just subjective testimony that ranges from reasonable to suspiciously fame-whoring. That was a quote. And believe it or not, that quote was on Wikipedia. So clearly it is not believed in by the general public, or at least by scientists. But then we know as well that a very large number of scientists and such do not believe in a lot of things. So yeah, there's that. They generally turn up in more rural areas, which might be a clue, because we know that certain other specific things turn up in rural areas as well.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. And we've both seen them.
Yeah.
So, perhaps, let's go further. They
Can't smoke.
say?
No. It's just if I want to smoke, then I should have put my camera off.
Well, yes.
Otherwise, you'll get warnings.
We do, don't we? We get a lot of warnings on this channel. It's hilarious. Everybody is so sensitive these days. But now I was wondering about that actually, and maybe that's a topic for another live. Are people really that sensitive, or just the very few on social media?
No, I think people are get more offended by things in real life. On social media, you can say basically just what you want. Nobody's going to care. You would just not say that same things in front of someone
Well,
because you'll get punched.
that is possibly the case. Well, I'm going to do some research on it, and we will see where that goes. What really
I think it's
is out
mainly
there.
politics, which is the problem.
Well, that I will agree with as being an absolute fact. And as we
It's not
know,
that people are offended. It's got to do with politics.
and of course, politics is what drives social media.
Yeah.
We do know that. So, nevertheless, for another day. So, black-eyed children's, as we said, interestingly enough, and maybe suitably creepy for this channel, often in hoodies. Check my eyes. Am I good? Yep, I'm good. Okay.
Like
Mickey, look at me. Can I see the whites of your eyes? Yes, I can. All right, you're okay.
very
Just checking. Just checking. You never know.
yeah.
Okay, so we're not black-eyed children. Slightly outdated clothing, uh, solid pitch black eyes, very, very unnatural confidence, and always requiring permission to enter a private space. So that's our key point. Now, interestingly, sightings are prevalent in the US and UK. And I can already see a number of very, very interesting conspiracy theory type angles I could take on that for a number of reasons, which probably are not suitable for TikTok because they range to the political.
Uh,
Well,
sure.
recently has been when the major migrations of certain groups to the US and the UK have happened. And one of the theories, which we will come to, depends on what these creatures are. And maybe they went with, but we will get to it. So, as we wander along through these, keep in mind the possibilities. So, yeah, explanations are very varied, but everybody agrees that there's something that's probably not good for you, which is fair enough. There have even been those that have said that maybe they are like a child version of an angel of death. So, in the very first social media post, okay, 1996, Abilene, Texas, this guy was finishing a late shift at the local newspaper, and given that I used to run a newspaper, I can tell you that late shifts were the norm. Okay, so he's sitting inside his car outside a strip mall, writing out a check for something. Yep, I've done that. And suddenly the hair on the back of his neck stood up, and he noticed a group, because they never appear alone, okay, of teenagers standing close to his car. The teens asked for a ride to their mother's house to get money for tickets, as they wanted to catch a late night showing at the mall's movie theatre. But something struck Bethel as odd. The movie they wanted to see had already started 45 minutes ago, in fact, and the teenagers sounded much older than they appeared to be. Then in the dim light, and here's the other thing, they tend to avoid being in too much light. They don't turn up during the day. So in the dim light of the parking lot, he saw that their eyes were completely black. So he threw his car into reverse and sped away. And as he did so, he looked back, and the children, which should have been visible, were completely gone. So that was his experience of these particular children. Now, he then wrote about this in the Abilene News Reporter, and in the decades since, we've had lots and lots of other stories. So some say they are an example of death personified as a child. I don't know about that. They might be creepy, but I don't think death has a personification. That's just me, of course. You can give your opinions. But they are malevolent, otherworldly, and they exploit a very widely held belief, and this is absolutely true, that children are inherently good. And we tend to lower our defenses around children, which means that we're more likely to become a victim of them, letting them inside, inviting in death and destruction on ourselves. So that there is a reasonable viewpoint to these things, okay? Now, of course, it doesn't tell us anything about what they might be. All we know is that in every story is there's no pupil, there's no white, there's no iris. Their eyes are totally black. And apparently, at least according to the pictures I've seen that people have done from descriptions, a glossy black, if that makes any difference. I don't know if it does. It may or it may not. Don't know. What do you think? Glossy? Matte? Don't know.
I guess it's more creepy if it's glossy.
Yeah, fair point, fair point. The children usually appear to be school-aged, so between 6 and 16, wear outdated clothing, and in one rather interesting description, the children wore sports clothing with the logo of a sports team that had actually folded 10 years earlier. So they're not quite accurate to time. Almost as if, yeah, so almost as if they're working from things they've been told about how people dress and such, but they're not quite accurate.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, it's an interesting little bit, and it might connect to one of the answers. So, keep these things in mind. They usually speak in a monotone and are more mature than expected, and they often repeat the same phrase. So, insistent on being let inside, but using the same words, almost as you might if you were speaking a language that you're not completely native to. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have worked on learning several languages in my life, and I know for absolute certainty I stick to those phrases I know. It's automatic. They're not my native tongue, so I try to not make an idiot of myself by using phrases. It's a natural thing to do, which implies that the language they're speaking in isn't natural to them. Right? So they will plead at first, asking to make a phone call, use the bathroom, catch a ride, but they may get slightly more aggressive if you don't answer. Now, here are the key things that make things weird and worrying. Okay. Now, a key element to it is something that has turned up in older stories about varying cryptids, that the children must be invited in to have any power over an individual, and if denied, they either disappear or wander off, but often terrifying their victims first. Now, the really creepy thing, which I do like, because after all, we like creepy, don't we? We don't know what they want. Now, in a weird kind of freaky way, even vampires have a bit of the edge taken off, in that at least we know what they're after. They might want to drink your blood, but we know that. Bigfoot wants to be left alone. Werewolves just want to hunt and feed. It sort of makes them predictable. The problem with these children is that we don't know anything about their intentions. So what actually happens if they're let in? And we have no answers.
I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to excuse myself tonight.
Are
I'm
you
so
falling
tired.
asleep? Oh, shame. No problem at all.
I feel so bad.
No,
And
not at all. I
I'm
can
gonna
see you.
pass out here in front of everyone. It's like,
I can see you dozing away there.
just can't do it. It's so painful.
Ah, it's a pity, because I wanted your input on the Paradise Valley connection. So, Maybe
I'm so
you'll have to watch the. I'll
yeah.
make sure I upload the video, and you can watch it on YouTube, or I'll send it to you
Yeah.
so that you
I'm
can
so
give your
sorry.
opinion.
I'm so sorry.
Nah, absolutely, all good, all good
I feel like I'm
indeed.
about to like roll it out.
Don't do that.
Mm,
But
Thanks.
thank you for coming on.
Thank,
I do appreciate.
thank you for the live. You guys have a great night then.
You too.
I'll chat to you soon. Night night.
Night night.
Mm.
So, the critical thing is we don't know. It's scary because we don't know what they want or what they're going to do if we let them in. Now, there are stories of people who have let them in. And the critical thing that seems to follow is that bad things happen. Okay, according to the stories, catastrophes can vary from fatal accidents to sudden awful sicknesses to serious bad luck. So they seem to have some kind of an effect. Now, Burke says they're liminal in the sense that they're children but not quite. There's an uncanniness there because they look like something we expect even though they're not. Now, in all normal stories, children represent new beginnings, hope, new birth, a new possibility, and the conquering over of the old, which is absolutely the case. Now, all of these things are what these are not. Now, there's a report of somebody who said one of her friends experienced a black-eyed child pounding on her door at 3 a.m. long before she had heard of or read of any study into these things. So it seems that they have turned up in places where people don't know. Now, a study done by this person called Burke, whoever she is, says that we know that things like the black-eyed children turn up in all kinds of folklore. Irish folklore talk about changelings, fairy babies swapped with humans, who also in the traditions have different looking eyes. In certain Native American traditions, especially those around California's Lake Tahoe and Nevada's Pyramid Lake, water babies exist that are evil spirits of some kind whose cries lure people to their death. And like the black-eyed children, these much older folklore figures take advantage of our desire to help people smaller and more helpless than we are. And this tactic makes them especially disturbing and a lot more calculated. So they choose how they appear quite deliberately. Now, we know that Bethel's Tale in the parking lot was more than 30 years ago, and it was the first known mention, but there's plenty of other stories in that regard. So they do say if there's a knock on the door or on your car window, have a good look at their eyes before responding to them, just in case. So, moving along with this rather interesting story, we do need to look at what sort of things might be of use in some regard if we ever actually do encounter these weird creatures. I mean, all right, so let's assume for the sake of argument they're vampires or whatever. So what? What do I do if one of these things turns up? That's the critical thing. Well, we do know that they can get very upset with you if you don't help them. They get cross. Now, that seems to imply they are desperate in some way to get in. So, whatever that might mean, what are they getting in? Into your home, into your car, or into your soul? That would be a fair question. So, coal black eyes, yes. The ability to seemingly disappear if they wish to, absolutely. So, not bound by the normal things you would expect kids to. And the fact that they turn at night gives further credence to the fact they're not what they appear to be. You shouldn't let them in that regard. That would be bad. Now, the legends have told us a lot of stuff about them. And the first and most important thing you can do is basically you've got to say, if they ask to come in, you've got to say no. Because then they can't. They may get upset and they may get annoyed, but it seems that, and this is where things get very interesting, what exactly they are might be something we have encountered before, maybe. So in an effort to see what's out there, one theory which came up is this. These come from your Mediterranean type area, your North African type area, and the reason is that they are jinn, possibly the children of jinn, we're not sure. Now, one of the biggest failures and the reason they are so dangerous when they turn up in the Western world, according to what was said, is because, you see, we have no knowledge of them and we have no particular legends of them. So they have an advantage over us. The other possibility is that this particular kind of jinn, it comes from a specific area, and as we know, I've just got a message that came in, quick answer there. As we know, people have only really started moving around the world on any significant manner quite recently in history. I mean, it's only been in the last few years, really. So we can't expect a lot of stories in other countries of things that are normally locally found until you have a sufficient number of people that have come in. And that's why now we get them. So it's because we've made the world smaller and the different peoples, races and cultures have moved around the world. So that's a possibility. There we go. All of the people that said that they were going to be on and couldn't be on because. So we have to wish them good night because they are great supporters. So, jinn, as we know, are another race of beings created by God from not earth as we were, but from fire, the smokeless fire, that exist alongside humans in a parallel world. They have free will. They can be good, evil, or neutral, and will be accountable on Judgment Day, according to Islam. Now, many of them are disbelievers. They are shapeshifters, can turn invisible. They eat, drink, marry, have children, and though they live far longer than humans do, they are mortal. They live and die. And there are a number of varieties or races, if you will, of jinn, just as there are a number of races of humans. They tend to prefer desolate, dark, unclean, and lost places, which means you're far more likely to encounter them in a very rural setting rather than the middle of a city, normally. They might be able to affect your mind, cause madness, and whisper evil thoughts, and even possess people, which might be what they're asking when they ask to be let in. It's not into your house, but it's into you, a possibility. So perhaps black-eyed children are in fact jinn. Now, if this is true, then according to what we are told, the way to stop them absolutely is have a strong faith, and keeping to God will keep them off, and even prayer will have a great deal of effect on you, and be a clean person spiritually and physically. And very strangely, I'm not entirely sure why, eat 7 dates once a day. I'm not sure where that one comes in, but there you go. But now the other option is that they are not jinn at all, these black-eyed children, but they are what shadow people look like. Now, as we know in the last live, there's been a number of sightings, particularly in Pinetown. Now, I'm not saying there aren't plenty in other places, there absolutely are, but I decided to have a bit of a deep dive into Pinetown as a place, because I have lived there, I have been there, and absolutely I have seen shadow people there. And there are some very interesting things in relation to that. So shadow people, generally dark silhouette-like figures that appear like independently moving shadows. They might be able to possess you, just like jinn, so maybe related, and connected, at least in the Pinetown area, very much to the Paradise Valley Nature Reserve for a number of interesting reasons. And we're going to look into those reasons simply because it might give us an idea or a background as to the sort of places that these things lurk. But there has been a number of other incidents that are quite cool. So we're going to go further into that regard to find out what we can about the shadow people and about Paradise Valley. So shadow people, or black mass, in Pinetown is often referred to as the black stick man. So a shadowy black human shape, like a sort of stick man, like you might draw. So usually skinny and elongated, which fits to the descriptions often given. Now, a number of people have actually written books on this as well, describing these so-called creatures We know that they turn up in American stories, especially among the Native Americans. They turn up in Africa, absolutely. I've heard many, many stories. They seem to be connected to a kind of creature, demon, who knows what, maybe it's a tokolos, that will sit on your chest and choke them, but they can be chased off by prayer, which is odd, because why? What is it about that drives them off? Well, it depends on what your religion is and how you view it. That will change things. But nevertheless, varying people have commented on them. They are believed in by anybody pretty much that believes in the supernatural. They're just an accepted part along with ghosts and such. Now, interestingly, one example of a very regular seen one is the Hat Man. Basically a shadow type person, but known to wear a broad-brimmed hat, apparently, on his head, commonly associated with sleep paralysis and the abuse of antihistamine medication, according to scientists, which may or may not be the case. And of course, witnesses say that they knew he was around because they could feel him staring at them. Maybe. Now science has got all kinds of answers to these. We've spoken on this before, and we're absolutely not going to go into it, because the whole point is, if it does exist, what then? We know that it's turned up in all kinds of movies and all the rest of that as a very popular theme. So there are a lot of creepypastas about this possible thing. But let's talk about Paradise Valley. Why do we care? Where is it and what's going on? Well, it's in South Africa. It's in the city of Pinetown in KwaZulu-Natal. And it is on the road, main road up, if you're going up from Durban through the Midlands to Joburg. So it's one of the big cities on the main thing, if you don't know. It is a very, very pretty place. The reserve has 170 hectares of coastal forest and grassland, centered around a gorge carved out by the Umbilo River. It's a great place for hiking, for cycling, for picnics, and for braais, which, yeah, it absolutely is. I have done many of those things there and enjoyed it immensely. So a very nice place, but it's also a very historic place, and for a number of reasons. And the reasons might give us something of an idea. Remember, we're talking 170 acres, so it is, though it's right there in a built-up area, it itself is fairly empty. It is, in fact, the place where there are two national monuments, interestingly enough. The Umbilo Waterworks, built in 1887, and the Indigo Vats, which was a dyeing place, a very interesting thing. But both of these business type things that were there are long gone. And what remains are a number of mysterious burial mounds, 80 about of them, mounds of stone scattered around the reserve. All of the trails that go through there are fairly easy to walk. They are great. It's very, very beautiful. There is a waterfall and more. And during the day, it's a particularly nice sort of a place with strelitzias all around and more. So well worth doing. The waterfall's viewing platform is well worth a sea with stone stairs down to the bottom of the falls with a pool, but you can't swim because the Mbilo River is not known for its water quality. Just saying. But nevertheless, it's a lovely place during the day. That area at night gets kind of creepy. And these burial mounds are kind of the reason, which is sort of important. Maybe. We shall see. Now, apparently, you see quite a lot of these shadow creature type things around the area, and they do have an effect on it. And one of the effects are two occasions, in fact, where a number of pupils at local schools became, and I quote the news article, possessed by demons. An interesting point. So there were terrifying scenes of half-closed pupils wailing and screaming at a girls' high school, which resulted in some teachers allegedly fleeing, and unnerved parents are worried that their children might be affected by demons, or as many would say, affected by the ancestors, possibly, because obviously we are a very multicultural society with a number of different beliefs. Experts say the behavior of the pupils has all the hallmarks of something evil, and they are encouraging parents and teachers to find a solution as a matter of urgency. Panicked mothers told The Independent on Saturday that they were worried that their children's lives were at risk after several pupils screamed and fainted in some cases, turned violent without reason, and a few teachers apparently fled, feeling it unsafe. Now, when was this? Well, this was about 3 or 4 years ago, this particular incident. So Thursday, Friday, and Monday, the school descended into mayhem as girls from different grades barged out of their classrooms, and some even ran through the school gates into the very busy road outside, all the while screaming and wailing as if under attack. A pupil who spoke to The Independent on Saturday with permission said that some children wanted to jump off the buildings. They were screaming that was something in them that didn't want to come out. They were particularly scared when one girl started speaking with the voice of a man. She was walking like a man, hitting children, and they were running away from her. They were screaming like they were beaten up. They were screaming so badly I was traumatized, but the spirit didn't affect me. She said that even though a possessed pupil could be heard by everyone, onlookers couldn't understand what language was being spoken. Now, we're very familiar in this country, as we well know, with a lot of different languages, and we are pretty familiar with the different kinds of languages around, so somebody would have been able to tell if it was one known. So that's an interesting point. A teacher apparently told pupils that they were warned not to intervene as it was an ancestral matter. Well, that's one view that was brought in. All we do know is that there was a hell of a lot of noise and running around screaming, often in some cases in a state of semi-undress. Now, people got involved and they said they need someone who is powerful in prayer. There is an evil spirit around that will target anyone weak and just circulate to the next one. It can't be that most of the kids have something similar. It can only be that there is one thing moving around between them. Now, we do know that the Jinn are said to possess, can drive people mad, and can bring varying forms of sickness. So this seems to fit to that, absolutely. It seems that basically they dealt with the issue with prayers and such, and thereafter the problem was solved. They took control. They brought in a suitable amount of prayer and what have you, and they do say that it was dealt with. Maybe. We shall see. Nevertheless, the phenomenon, however, as interesting as it was, div.not.mj.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks. And how are you?
Good, good, good. Welcome, welcome. Have you been listening for a bit? Or did you just jump on
Yes, I
now?
have.
Okay, so you're up to speed with where we are.
Yep.
Okay, good. So what do you think? Was this some kind of an ancestral thing? Was this a jinn? Was it a demon? What do you think?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's a demon.
Well, this was definitely one of the opinions given. Some did say that they thought it might rather be some kind of an ancestral spirit, but either way, in all occasions, they said what you need is a serious amount of prayer involved, and that's the only way to deal with it. Now, interesting though, this is not the first time it's happened, because at 2020, at another school, also a girls' school in the area, they started screaming and thrashing about on the ground for no reason. One girl clutched her head, fell to the ground, and rolled around while other pupils around her
Yani?
scattered in terror.
Yani?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Yes, so this apparently, some did question if it was an attempt by the ancestors to speak, but others said, no, no, this was something bad and it must be dealt with. So that's how they went with that. So it's not the first time it's happened in the area. And of course, it caused a great deal of terror and more and all the rest of it. Now, what was the cause? Well, different people said different things. And of course, because it is a multicultural environment there, the different faiths had their own views as to what was causing the trouble. But the key point is that it all happened around the Paradise Valley area, which is supposed to be possibly a very haunted type place. Maybe. We shall see. Now, essentially, what I found was a very interesting article, and what gave it a little bit more of an interesting point in many ways is that it actually is an article that appeared in Psychology Today, which I thought was very, very interesting. In that it gives a certain amount of credence to what's being said. So this is based on research that was done by a psychologist. Now, whether or not you accept it, I don't know. I would not know what I might be able to do, to be honest with you. Nevertheless, I can tell stories, which is what I am doing. I stick to what I am good at. So, this person that wrote the article said, I first heard about shadow people years ago when I was writing a travel feature about haunted places in New Hope, which is a place in America, and I came across a story of a house in which the female resident claimed to have seen dark shadows shaped like humans, and not only that, they were particularly aggressive. They would knock things over, slam doors, and she felt threatened. The report diverged from the normal ghost sightings I'd heard before, so I was intrigued, as it was a bit different to the standard, which I think is very, very, very fair. Well, happy birthday to you. I hope you have a wonderful one. Now, this person that wrote the article then met Rosemary Ellen Guiley, one of our leading experts on the paranormal, apparently. And when asked about these shadow people, she said she was working on a book that identified shadow creatures as jinn. And we don't know anything about them because they're not really part of our understanding at all. I do recall that. And yes, you should have told me then. I would have wished you then. All we in the West generally encounter jinn as is the genie in the Aladdin stories, which is fair enough. Now, we know that the paranormal expert has published over 50 books on a wide range of paranormal, spiritual, and mystical topics. And she's supposed to be the one that knows all the things. And she reckons that these shadow-type creatures are very, very specifically jinn. So she was asked, why jinn? Now, there are two major avenues, both involving shadow people, dark and menacing humanoids, that she had been researching since 2004. She already knew about the research on the jinn from earlier examinations on demonology, which they're not exactly. So negative hauntings tend to involve shadow people. Now, they are also linked to a certain degree to extraterrestrial or alien experiences, according to this person. But the key point is that you can kind of link them in one way or another to almost all kinds of weird encounters throughout history. Now, this is true. I will say that not all, but there are certainly a fair number of these things you could link things to the jinn with. We know that they have stories of them in Native American folklore. We know that there are stories of them in or similar things all over the world, but the primary lore comes from the Middle East, and they never really entered into anybody else's culture beyond the genie in a bottle story. So we don't connect back and think about them as this thing. Now, according to the stories, at least, they are made of the smokeless fire and come out of the winds. So they are kind of an air thing. Now, that means that they are not angelic, because angels are creatures of light, which are different. So all of these different things are from a specific kind of stuff, in a way. And one of the warnings she makes is that we tend to give them human-like hierarchies and social structures and stuff, but really we don't actually know, and that's a projection from our side in many ways. How they live and what exactly is important isn't that clear. Now, we do know there are giveaway signs in accordance with the old law. They never duplicate 100% what they are trying to look like. And they may have bits that give them away: overly hairy legs and feet, animal-like body parts, not quite perfect heads, which means they will wear hats or hoods to cover up, and that their eyes, while human shaped, don't have quite the right color, and can even appear, most interestingly, slightly reptilian, which implies then that they are around a lot more than you might think, and we see them all the time. So we just don't realize it, but every now and then one of them will slip a bit and we will see the difference. Now, according to the law, and this is the important bit, the jinn preceded humanity in the world, and they got pushed out by us, or indeed for us, and some of them are still angry about it and want the place back. So their motives include curiosity, infatuation, obsession, playfulness, trickiness, hostility, malevolence, or more. It runs across the whole gamut, dependent on how the individual one feels about people. Some of them are benevolent and helpful, but if they are, it's generally for a price. Well, people are not much different to that, let's be fair. People have a tendency to think that other entities are like cut-out cookies all the same, and this is also true. We even do this about people. One of the biggest failings of humanity, I'm going to put it to you, is that we love putting things in boxes even when there isn't a proper fit. So this is true. The jinn, as well as other beings, are varied as humans, neither good nor bad in all cases, and have unique personalities. So absolutely I would agree with that as a statement. So what is the most weird thing about them? They have a long-standing and deeply embedded presence among us, far greater than you might think. And the researcher says that the more she researched, the more she realized that there's evidence of them all over. And very often we are influenced, manipulated, and more by certain of them. So it is a very, very interesting thing. And if you are keen, there are books on it, apparently, which will tell you all this and more, which I find quite interesting. Now, it does mean that one good thing is it will teach us to keep an open mind, that there may be more out there than we realize, and that, in fact, there may be are possible conflicts with things that we didn't realize we are in conflict with, which is interesting, at least in that regard. So this is the view of a professor of forensic psychology at De Sales University, Catherine Ramsland, PhD, which I think is pretty cool. I do like that. I think it's an interesting view from a professional, if you will. Now, guess who's back? Back again. What are you doing, sir? And why do you keep changing your name? It gets so confusing. How you doing?
Good.
Good, good, good. And did you have a good Christmas, New Year, and all the rest of that rubbish?
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. So why do you keep changing your name? It makes it very difficult to know when you turn up.
The way you can remember my name is MJ.
There is that. That is very true. That is very, very true indeed. And the
Each time I
MJ
change
is
it, I
there.
put MJ at the end.
That is true. That's normally how I tell when it is you. So yeah, I'm glad you're back.
Okay.
Awesome, awesome. So, one of the big questions which came up is, hold on, if these things do exist, are they in any manner or form compatible with people? Because according to history at least, yes they are. And throughout history you'll find there are a number of weird creatures. So the fairy, for example, the fae, the Tuatha De Danann and such, and those creatures mentioned in the Mabinogion are in fact compatible with humans, and the jinn are no exception. So it seems we've got a number of creatures out there that are similar to us, not quite the same, that might live alongside in a weird way. And history tends to refer to these creatures as some kind of demon, but mostly that's a religious perspective and a blanket term rather than anything else. But what happens if one of them did mate with a human and had a child? Well, of course, that is a cambion, a halfling. Now, cambion comes from the Latin cambiare, to exchange, and ultimately from the Celtic root word meaning also to exchange, but also crooked. So, changeling in a way. None. iPhones are terrible. You should get a Android, which is the only phone I will ever recommend anyone having. We don't do iPhones. iPhones are terrible. I can't stand them. And their GUI is awful. Just so as you know, I'm an Android boy all the way. So the S series, any one of the S series, which is amazing. I use the S series. It is very, very, very good. So cambions are basically children that are not entirely human. I do have the A12 as well, yes, which is an excellent phone. Samsung is my brand of choice. Fully. Always Samsung. Never anything else. So your cambions can show up, and they say that one of the problems with them is they tend to eat a heck of a lot, and they are ever so slightly different to the normal child because of their slightly supernatural parentage, I suppose we can call it. Now, little things show them as being not normal. Some of them don't require any particular human interaction as normal babies do. Some don't have a noticeable pulse even, but some are said to be heavier than normal. So an interesting sort of setup in that regard. We know that these hybrids may have some of the abilities connected to both parents, which is interesting. So there is that in that regard. Why would they? Well, if these creatures are as varied and normal as humans are, I suppose they can meet and fall in love and do all the things just like humans can, a normal thing. But of course, in all ways, they say that these things are definitely dangerous, awful, and should be avoided in all kinds of ways. They turn up in a lot of stories as well. Merlin the magician in Arthurian legend was said to be a Cambion. We know that Hellboy in the comics and the movies is a Cambion. Raven in DC Comics is a Cambion. We know that in the Shadowhunter Chronicles, witches and warlocks are Cambions as well. So we see them in all kinds of stories. We know in the Infernal Devices, one of the main characters is the daughter of a Nephilim and a demon, making her very unique. I don't know if that counts quite as a Cambion, but there you go. We know that in things like Devil May Cry, Dante and Virgil are Cambions. And of course in K-pop, Demon Hunters, if you're into that. Rumi is the daughter of a human and a demon, making her a Cambion. So they've definitely turned up in stories both ancient and modern. Now, this connects to all kinds of things because we have, in that regard, your Dampires, half vampires, your Nephilim, half angels, your Nasnas, which is a half jinn, your Grendel, not sure what he was a half was, but part of him was not human, absolutely, and several others that turned up in varying stories. Grendel, of course, is the creature in Beowulf, an Anglo-Saxon epic poem from very, very, very long time ago. And he was spoken of both as a Thoris and an Etin, which were creatures that were not human from the old Anglo-Saxon myth and Nordic Germanic, Chthonic is a proper word, mythology, and just half that, half human. So absolutely. There's a medieval story called Robert and the Devil about a Norman knight. Normans came from France, in case you're wondering. Ah, that sounds like a good one. We're actually almost at the end of this basic thing. I did say it would be shorter, so stick around. And yeah. So you absolutely do have a number of interesting stories of these creatures throughout history. So Robert and the Devil, well, he was the son of the devil, and that's an old story. And so Gautha is a Middle Ages story, poem, if you will, of one who was part human, part demon. So we've got stories throughout history of these kinds of mixes, such as they are. So it seems that, yes, you can indeed have that. Now, I can tell you absolutely that there are not only the graves in Paradise Valley, but in Pinetown, as we know, was the place where there was one of the major concentration camps that was put in by the British, the first use of concentration camps in the world that were put in that, or at least recorded ones, to keep the Afrikaner women and children in, where a great many died. So we have that as well. So that whole area around Pinetown is fairly ghostly and spooky and weird, and the wild places are indeed wild. And I will tell you that I've seen a few funky things down there that I don't explain very easily myself. And I lived there for a while, a couple of years back in the day. So, yeah, it seems that certain places do attract certain things. And these stickmen or shadow creatures or more definitely do seem to keep turning up, even in stories by those who generally are not particularly believers. Now, if you ever want to go and check it out, right behind me there is Paradise Valley, which is pretty cool. It is a very interesting and beautiful place, I will say that. I have absolutely always enjoyed my visits to it. It's very easy to get to if you are so moved, and it's well worth going during the day, but I do warn you, at night the strange comes out. And of course, on the roads around there are a number of stories of weird ghosts and more, some of which are apparently quite aggressive. So keep that in mind if you ever go around there in the dark. But yeah, that's the weird bits that we have put together. Very short live, I will admit. We're short by the 40 minutes for the usual, but I think I'm going to cut it there because it's definitely been a long day for me as well. So hopefully you will forgive the shorter live, and I hope you enjoyed it. But with that said, thank you for being a part of it. Spooky, do you have any comments to add to this? Do you know of any places that are particularly known for the appearance of shadow creatures in this country?
This country specifically.
And I suppose anywhere else as well. I'm just curious, but...
No.
You haven't encountered strange stories of mysterious beasts?
No, I don't tend to look them up. No.
Well, if you ever get the
I've
chance...
never seen any personally.
Would you want to?
Well,
Thinking
I'm not.
carefully
I
about
won't make
that.
it a goal. I won't make it a goal. If somebody tells me there's like a monster hiding somewhere, I'm not really in the mood to go and find it and look at it.
You raise a
I'll
good
just let
point.
it be.
You raise a good point. I can't argue with that. I got to be honest. Yeah, I can accept that as a pretty reasonable and sensible attitude in a lot of ways. So, fair point.
I won't bother it unless it will come and bother me. Then it's looking for trouble. But I'm not going to go and look for trouble.
I do know that there are specific places that they like to hang out that I've encountered around. And there are places where you just don't get anything, no matter what. And it does seem that the more built up a place is, usually the less you get.
Yeah.
So there is that. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point. Nevertheless, that was the tie-in for the Strange. I wonder if there are specific races, not just one, but a number around the world of these parallel creatures. And if they are, what do you think they might be or how they might turn out? I suppose that what we call the Tuatha De Danann originate in Spain, they say, and moved to the British Isles, which implies there may have been, at a point, specific ones in the British Isles that are now gone. And if we look at the old history, yes, there were the Furbolgs. We know that the Nanahe lived in Central America, the moon-eyed ones, and there are stories of other things around, absolutely. There are varying stories around of different sub-creatures, and given that there are different human races around the world, it seems fair enough, doesn't it, that there would be different supernatural races for each country and continent, more or less? I don't know.
So if somebody told you there's a monster living in this area, would you go and find it?
I might, because I'm a bit crazy like that, to be honest.
Yeah, poor guy. Poor guy. He's probably famous. Everybody comes and looks at him because he's fucking ugly, and everybody calls him a monster.
Well, I wouldn't.
So now people go and look for him.
Yes, I do wonder about that because everyone says, yeah, but we never find Bigfoot. Well, maybe he's sick of us and he's hiding away.
Yeah.
You know, fair point. I can't argue that. I think if people
Poor
kept
guy. He
coming,
was just born with big feet, and he was born very hairy, and
yeah,
now everybody's bothering him.
I mean, if people kept trying to get in my house to come and stare at me, I'd get a bit ticked off and all. You know, fair point. I like your thinking. So maybe if we were a bit nicer to these creatures, they wouldn't be a problem. Right?
Yeah.
So fair enough then. Challenge for you for the next live. I would love to know, what do you think would be the supernatural race that lives in southern Africa? Have a think. Come back to me on that. I would be very interested to hear your view.
Southern Africa.
Yes.
Okay.
So tomorrow night. And tomorrow I will see if I can come up with something suitably weird, wonderful, and interesting in order to give us more to talk about. So anyone that does have anything particular that I'd like looked into, do let me know. If not, well, I will see what I can find. Joy, you are very welcome. I'm sorry to tell you that you've come on just as we are ending off the live. A little bit early due to it being a very hot day and a muggy evening, and we're all exhausted. So I'm terribly sorry that it is late, but we will be back tomorrow, 10 o'clock, as always. So yeah, please do join us then. But with that said, yes, what is the race of cryptid that might claim Southern Africa as its home? I'd love to hear your views in the next live. But until then, thank you to everybody. It's been awesome. Thank you, Spooky. I hope you enjoyed.
Cool.
And yeah, if you think of anything you'd like looked into, I will gladly do some research and we can do that too. And yeah, do you think that the supernatural creatures are locally sourced, as it were, just as people are? We shall see. Have a great one. Good night. Sleep sweet. Cheers.
Cool. Cheers. Good night.
Good night. Good night. And huge thanks to Joy for those lives. I do appreciate.